Quick disclaimer. I suffer from a case of microphone voice. I hate the way I sound on recordings. You have been warned. Let's get started with that aside. Skipping knives, real quick. I'm going to talk about Sunstorms first. In my opinion, they are an easy S tier. They are good at crowd control, good at helping your team, great against armored targets, great against massive hordes. They have a massive area of effect. They are the reason I refer to my Blitz as the dedicated teamwork button. Here I have a simulated horde filled with a ton of highly armored enemies. Crushers, maulers, scab ragers, plenty of fodder. Now, chuck a stun, turn off invisibility, and have at 'em. Oh, would you look at that? The majority of the problem solved. Chuck the second one. And now it's just cleanup. We now move on to immolation grenades. Let me just put knives at the end since I'm going to talk about them last. They're okay. They do decent damage, approximately the same as a pre-rework bomber's fire. They're a bit hard to notice the difference between friendly and not friendly fire until you get used to it. But they are really good at clearing trash mobs from a horde. Your typical fodder enemies like newly converted poxwalkers, or straight up poxwalkers, or even basic dreg shooters if they're walking into the fire, like idiots. However, it tends to struggle a bit against more heavily armored enemies. I'm gonna give them a C tier, and to back it up, here we have another simulated horde of ragers, maulers, and basic fodder enemies. Throw fire, and the trash mobs just burn away like nothing. However, the armored enemies, they've got some staying power. Now, rending will help you greatly against highly armored enemies like these. So, if you've got something like an uncanny dueling sword, penetrating flame flamer, apply some rending to them, or brittleness. Helps the fire chew through them. Overall, not the best option, especially with the existence of, say, bulwarks and crushers. Not even all the rending in the world is going to help much against a crusher. For a quick in-game demonstration of what a crack can do, crusher, bulwark, reaper. Non-issues. Maulers, non-issue. Hello, Stefani. Ragers, armored, non-issue. Ragers, unarmored, bit of an issue. Since they don't stick to unarmored Ragers. Yeah, and it's got some pretty extreme damage fall off. Chuck it at the middle of that clump. Not all of them die. That's approximately, I'd say, 2 meters of a lethal splash radius. But this is what you people are actually here for, isn't it? Some good old-fashioned demon host demolition. Keep in mind, demon hosts have 20% damage resistance. Moving on to veteran second grenade, we have Shredder Frag grenades, top of S tier. In my personal opinion, these are likely the best grenade in the game. They have insane and unmatched horde clear potential, insane and unmatched damage output, 6 stacks of bleed, 2 grenades, 12 stacks of bleed. That will tear apart anything that isn't a crusher or a boss. No questions asked. And you get so many of these, they become so spammable as veteran. No contest. One of my favorites to use, feels great to use, and it's just outright good damage. Easy top of S tier, easily one of the best in the game, if not the best. Unfortunately for Shredder Frag grenades, throwing knives exist. In-game test, Shredder Frag grenades versus a clump of every non-boss enemy in the game. Throwing 3. As you can see, the only things that typically survive Shredder Frag grenades are things with high health and high armor. We're talking bulwarks, crushers, the occasional mauler. But outside of crushers, they are all on death's door. Smoke grenades, veteran's final grenade. I'm not exactly experienced with them personally, but they don't exactly do much. They effectively erect a wall of non-line of sight allowing smoke, causing any enemy shooter, including snipers and gunners, to not be able to shoot at you. However, it does make it so that things such as net gunners tend to just rush through the smoke and start to try to shoot you point blank the moment they either get through the smoke or get to you inside of the smoke. And it's much easier to dodge a net gunshot from 12 meters than it is from 2 meters. Combine that with the fact that it causes a bit of a frame rate drop and makes it harder for your own teammates to shoot enemies. I think I'm gonna have to give them a D tier, sadly. For an endgame test, I'm going to quickly show you what smoke grenades does to gunners and certain specialist enemies. Here we have hounds. Hounds are fully incapable of pouncing you as long as you remain in a smoke cloud. However, the moment you leave its radius, they will attempt to pounce you again. Like that. In the case of trappers, they simply just run through the smoke and try to net you. In the case of flamers and bombardiers, flamers run through the smoke and will flame you, and bombers just become a bit more non-discriminate with where they toss their bombs. Lastly, against gunners, shotgunners, and basic shooters, shotgunners will try to run through the smoke and blast you, and if you're inside of the smoke, they kind of just swap to melee. Whilst gunners, shooters, and reapers straight up can't do anything, since they no longer have line of sight. The moment you return to line of sight or that smoke wears off, they start trying to shoot you again. Simple as. Moving on to the Psyker Blitzes. Psyker Blitzes act less like the traditional Blitz you see on other classes and more like a third weapon slot. Each one specializes in a different role, be it all-arounder, crowd control, or single target. Let us start with Assail. I hate Assail. In my personal opinion, it is my least favorite blitz in the game, and what I feel like is just a massive crutch. Assail, when it first dropped, was definitely overtuned and definitely far too strong. Currently, Assail kind of just works as a crutch. A half decent psyker, maybe level 20 to 30, 20 to 30 or so, can just run nothing but Assail for a whole match and still do well. High kill count, high damage, low damage received. And it doesn't even feel good to use either. Definitely staying at the bottom of D tier and still my least favorite blitz in the game. Now, when it comes to in-game, the game plan for Assail is just to spam them out. Heavy attacks for elites, and spamming out light attacks against Horde. I know, would you look at that? They're all gone. Now, here's something funny with Assail. Assuming you have a full magazine, I'll let it recharge for a second, and not using an insane amount of peril generation reduction, for example, Empiric Resolve and Reality Anchor, you can't even empty out your entire magazine's worth of Assail before you peril, due to how fast it regenerates. Moving on from Assail, we have Smite. I like Smite. Smite is fun. I love seeing a Smite Psyker on my team, since I am a Zealot main. Having my enemies not be able to move while I shank the shit out of them is a definite plus for me. However, Smite users are a mixed bag. Some people only use Smite for the whole mission. Some people completely forget they have Smite for the whole mission. Some people only use Smite against large hordes and prefer to use their other weapons. If you can get used to the volatility of Smite on your teammates, you might find yourself liking it more. But when it comes to practicality, given its insane CC potential against both hordes and armored units or elite units, I'm going to give Smite an A. But, in hindsight, calculate in the fact that Smite teaches newer players bad habits and prevent them from learning decent melee combat abilities as Psyker, I have to drop it down to a B tier due to technicality. Now, for an in-game demonstration of Smite, shout, and then pick off the leech with Bolt Pistol. Most of the main body of the Horde burns. Cycle back for cooldown, and more Soul Blaze. For Psyker's final blitz, we have good old Brain Burst, Augmented Brain Rupture. Once again, I'm going to easily say it's probably one of the top 5 blitzes in the game. It's Psyker's original blitz, and its role is elite sniping and specialist sniping. It's effectively a third weapon and a constant sniper rifle in your back pocket, very akin to knives and rock. Brain Burst is sitting at the top of A tier, no questions about it. In an actual match, using Brain Burst, your highest priority target would be gunners, or specials such as trappers, flamers, and especially snipers. Being able to just grab line of sight for a brief moment from your target and immediately ducking behind a piece of cover and popping their head, without line of sight, mind you, since you're behind a piece of cover, is not to be underestimated. Combine that with, say, Venting Shriek, you get 2 Brain Bursts in on Elite, start a fire, and then boom, the rest of the Horde is now burning to death from Soul Blaze, whilst the Elites are taking heavy ticks from stacks of Soul Blazes, from both the Shriek and Psyker's innate Soul Blaze mode. Lastly, we have Ogren. The first of Ogren's blitzes I'm going to cover is the Frag Bomb. Oh boy, it's just a pocket nuke. Grenade pickups give you one back. You have to learn when to pop it, and when you do, anything that isn't a boss or a crusher is pretty much going to get wiped off the face of the map. But learning when to use it is a very, very big skill issue, let's be honest. And the fact that you get one kind of drags it down a bit. I'm very tempted to give it A tier, but I think it definitely deserves to be in top of B tier. It's great, don't get me wrong. It's just very limiting. However, if you roll enhanced splits on your Maelstrom, feel free to start chucking them like nothing, because you get 3, and they would be A tier in that scenario. Maybe even S tier, depending on what type of Maelstrom modifiers you get. Now, when it comes to endgame, using a frag bomb is easy. You see a giant horde with plenty of elites or maybe armored enemies. For example, this big horde in front of me. Or just a ton of crushers and maulers from a heavily armored patrol rushing you and your team. Great time for a frag bomb. One final footnote on the frag bomb. It's a great anti-sniper tool. For Ogren's second blitz, we have the Big Box of Hurt, and its augmented version, Bombs Away. And as an initial throw, it is a high single target damage chunk of metal you just chuck at something, and it hurts. I'm talking about one-shotting basically anything without severe armor or that isn't a monster. But the augmented version, Bombs Away, drops multiple additional grenades after initial impact. Those additional grenades dropped makes it an incredible horde control and stagger tool. And it's great at knocking enemies onto their ass. Really good for covering revives. Definitely a solid pick for any Ogren, as it still allows you to get Soften Them Up to assist your team with their damage output. An endgame use of the Big Box of Hurt would be, hypothetically speaking, you're surrounded by a horde, you got a teammate next to you that you gotta revive. You truck one, kill an enemy, the grenades are going off, and you can revive your teammate while the grenades cover you with their stagger. On top of that, popping valuable distraction makes it so that the grenades do more damage, making the horde take more damage, softening them up for your team to take care of them easier. Look, I'm not re-recording that one, alright? You get to keep the stutter in. You get to hear me stutter. Fuck you. Fuck you. Fuck you. And fuck you. Yeah. For Ogren's last blitz, we have the Big Friendly Rock. The Big Friendly Rock goes into Rock tier. Reason? Rock. We now arrive at the last blitz to talk about, Zealot's throwing knives. In my personal opinion, these are likely the best blitz option in the game. They don't have the horde control of stun storms or shredder frag grenades. They don't have the kill power of frag grenades, frag bombs, rocks, or shredders. They don't have the utility of smite or smoke grenades. But what they do have is an insane stat block. The throwing knives cover a Zealot's biggest weakness, especially when you're using heavier weapons like the Flamer or Bolter. It is a quick option to dispatch gunners, shotgunners, trappers, and snipers. One knife to the head one-shots all of those enemies. No questions asked. One shot to the body nearly one-taps a trapper and consistently kills snipers. 2 shots to the body will always kill a trapper and do some severe damage to gunners and shotgunners, but these are a precision weapon. You want to be hitting headshots with these. Now, in practice, throwing knives cannot one-shot maulers, ogre-type enemies, especially crushers, monsters, or mutants. But anything else is fair game to be one-tapped, as long as you headshot. Once you put in a bit of practice, they also become really fun. Ignore that. Alongside maulers, you cannot one-shot headshot both the Rager types, unless you're running specifically for these Ragers, plus 25% Maniac on a weapon. If you have that Maniac damage buff, they become one-shot headshots. Now, the throwing knives get a bit funky. As many of you know, red stems have rending. Wanna know what else has rending? Hand cannon revolvers. Combining that with Perfectionist allows you to one-shot crushers and maulers, as well as reapers. The Rager enemies, mutants, and even bulwarks, as long as you can get past your shield. Nothing is safe from the might of the throwing knives. Especially not them.